Thought rarely begins at the moment it becomes visible. What feels like a clear idea is only the final crest of a long interior motion. Beneath awareness, a subtle momentum has already been drifting through the background. This momentum carries impressions that enter quietly and move among traces of earlier experience. At first, these impressions have no structure. They are faint and easy to overlook, yet they begin the shaping process that will eventually produce a recognizable thought. Consider how thinking usually feels. The mind believes it creates thoughts in distinct moments. A sentence forms, a realization appears, a direction becomes clear. These moments feel like origins, but they are not origins. They are surface appearances. The true beginning lies in the subtle momentum already moving beneath attention. The core idea is that thought is not a point, but a progression. A thought becomes visible only when the underlying movement has gathered enough coherence. Long before that instant, the movement has been influenced by earlier traces. These traces are not memories in the usual sense. They are quiet residues formed by past impressions. They create soft inclinations. When new impressions drift into the background, these residues shape them. The shaping is mild but continuous. It is not deliberate and not controlled. It is simply the natural interaction between earlier meaning and present input. As these interactions accumulate, the background field gains direction. The direction is still too weak to feel like thought. It is only a leaning. But the leaning strengthens as more material gathers. At some point, the movement becomes coherent enough that awareness can detect it. When awareness detects it, the mind calls it a thought. This detection feels like birth, but it is closer to completion. The mechanism behind this process is subtle. New impressions enter the background field as slight movements. Each movement touches earlier traces. The traces apply influence. The influence adjusts the movement. Each adjustment adds direction. The direction collects strength. When strength becomes stable, the movement transforms into clear thought. Awareness meets the finished motion and assumes it just began. To understand this more clearly, imagine a simple sequence. A faint internal movement begins without form. Past traces bend this movement toward a direction. The movement gains coherence and begins to shape expectation. Awareness finally meets the coherent structure and interprets it as thought. With this sequence in mind, pause and observe how immediate thought usually feels. The immediate feeling comes from the fact that the earlier stages remain invisible. The background field is active at all times. It is constantly rearranging fragments. It is continuously receiving impressions and blending them with older traces. This means the mind is always in motion, even during moments that feel silent. The sense of stillness is often just a lack of awareness of the deeper activity. When thought is seen as an ongoing movement rather than a sudden event, something important shifts. The pressure to generate clarity dissolves. Clarity no longer needs to appear instantly because the mind understands that the interior motion is still forming. The emerging direction is already present even if it has not yet reached recognition. This perspective creates a quieter relationship with thinking. The mind becomes less reactive because it no longer expects thoughts to arise on command. Instead, it begins to sense the early signals within the subtle momentum. These early signals appear as small leanings. They are not fully formed and cannot be articulated. But they reveal where the mind is heading. They show that thought grows through gradual alignment rather than sudden creation. Paying attention to these early movements builds patience. The mind stops forcing completion and instead observes the motion beneath it. The observation itself makes thinking clearer. When the background movement is acknowledged, it becomes easier to trust the unfolding of thought. There is no need to rush toward answers. The process is already underway. This awareness softens the internal atmosphere. Thoughts form more naturally when they are not forced. The subtle momentum becomes a companion rather than something hidden. The inner field becomes familiar. Thinking becomes continuous rather than fragmented. Insight arises at the moment when the movement becomes coherent enough to cross into awareness. By recognizing the earlier stages, the mind gains a deeper understanding of how ideas evolve. Thought becomes less mysterious and more intuitive. It feels less like an event and more like a flow. In this flow, each idea is the visible crest of a much longer motion. Thought is the visible crest of a long interior motion. What subtle momentum is already shaping your next idea?